Hello and welcome all to Big Bad Online, the midnight episode. We are now halfway through the con. This is very exciting. I'm Sean Nittner. I use he, him pronouns. Tonight I will be the panel moderator for this panel, and I might jump in because I got some feelings about this particular subject. We're going to be talking about a new project in development by Pam, which is the Blades in the Dark Dagger Isles supplement. Obviously, John, as the IP creator, is involved in the project as well. And we're going to be talking about the challenges and opportunities of exploring this new part of the Shattered Isles, the world of Blades in the Dark, and the cultural influences that Pam and the other contributors are bringing to the project. John, you want to kick us off with a little introduction and tell us about your part of the project so far?
Yeah. Hello. Thanks for having me on the panel. This is really exciting. I'm John Harper. I'm the creator of Blades in the Dark and other role-playing games. And yeah, it's the Dagger Isles, a region of the Shattered Isles of the setting of Blades in the Dark that gets about a 2-sentence description in the book. Yeah, it's about time to flesh out some of those parts of the world. So we're diving in, and Pam's taking the lead on that. I'm really excited to that's what they've made so far, and we'll talk about it tonight.
Okay, so I guess that's my cue to actually talk about it. Hello. So the interesting thing, well, for one, it's great that I can come out on the panel and actually talk about it because I've just been quietly vibrating on my corner of the world about this development, and I have a lot of people all around me going like, it'd be cool if people did a Dagger Isles supplement, and I'm like, right? Yeah, it would be, yeah, like furious nodding, right?
Yeah, but this is the first time we're talking about it, honestly.
The interesting thing with it though is a lot of developers, especially on the Twitter and Discord side, knew me not for my original games first, but for the fact that I made a game based off of the Grishaverse. So if you haven't seen Shadow and Bone on Netflix, there's a chance to go get it. So I made an entire supplement, or rather, an alternative play set of Blades in the Dark for that setting. And a small, again, not so small aspect of it was creating an entirely new continent based off of pre-colonial Philippines. And those make up just the barest spine of what's being started in this supplement for Dagger Isles. And the big design question that occupied my mind for it was, how can I make a world or make an aspect of this world that other people who either share my identities or are adjacent to my identities will look at that supplement and say, I can see myself there. Because the aesthetic of Blades of the Dark and its playstyle, I wouldn't call it universal, but it's very popular. And the other interesting thing is, not a lot of people get to talk a lot about what I like to call, or not me, because I can't take credit for it. The term tropical goth, how there can be gothic horror, except it is set in countries like mine, where you have the Catholic aesthetic, and how that informs the weirdness or the strange and the fringe of a place like the Philippines. And Southeast Asia has a lot of interesting things happening for it, and I would never dare to talk specifically about Southeast Asia because I am just like one girl from one country. So when I first pitched the project to Sean and John, I was like, okay, this is my idea. I don't know where to go with it yet, but this is the basic plan. And as we're going through the motions of developing it, that was when I really realized I can't do this alone. It would be unfair of me to say that I'm representing Southeast Asia in any form if it's just me. So that was where I decided to expand the team. So if anybody's curious about what the Dagger Isles is going to be like, I can tell you now, we are taking the archipelago and we are changing the reality of that archipelago. So if everybody opens their Blades in the Dark books like right now, you go to Shattered Isles and you see the Dagger Isles and it's positioned that way. One of the sections of the setting content will tell you about the lies that the Imperium has told you. that it wants you to think of certain things when you think of the Dagger Isles, and it wants you to think it is a conquered territory. It is one place with a whole bunch of brown people who are all the same in that tiny little area, and that one day they will all be conquered and know the grace of the emperor. Right? That is the basic lie that they'll tell you. Right? But that's not what we're going to show you. That this archipelago, how I'm envisioning the archipelago, and how the rest of the team is bringing it to life, is we're getting different creators to make different settlements. So travel will now be possible versus the traditional Blades in the Dark play of only being in one city. Now you will get to suffer through a basic Deathlands to get to one area or another in an island that is alive. Because that is another lie that Doskvol science will tell you, that land is merely land, seas are merely seas. Sure, they get strange, but ultimately they are inanimate and they have no sentience. But if you ask any Daggerite that question, they'll probably blink at you and say, "What do you mean? It's land. That is the body of my sky father, a Leviathan god beast who had an entire war with his spouse in the sky and then fell, and its blood, guts, and bones are the islands. Like, that is their reality." So that's just like a sneak peek, I guess, of the plans that we have in mind. And I I'd like to say I can talk forever, but also it's that weird moment of I have so much to say, I don't know where to begin.
You know where to
So I
start.
think
Yeah.
you've given people an incredible taste just there. If they're not salivating at what you just said, I don't know what to say. That was a perfect pitch for what it is.
I'm very glad it's being recorded because
Yeah.
I can go back later on and pull out of it. That when you wrote the twin timelines, Pam, that was just a thing of beauty, which is like the timeline from the imperial calendar, right? And it's like, you know, land conquered and civilized, and you know, all of this like very, you know, colonizer language propaganda, right?
Yeah.
And then you wrote the timeline of the Daggerites that, you know, had some crossovers of like, yes, these events did occur, right? But that was sort of it. Like there was the occasional through line where like you could tell, oh, what they're talking about here is the same thing they're talking about here. But otherwise, like these calendars are largely unconcerned with each other, with the
Yeah,
other one.
I took a lot of, well, the philosophical question on my mind for that one, not philosophical, design question on my mind for that one was time in itself is used as a colonizing factor, right? Few people talk a lot about writing a setting of colonized people or colonial violence. And one form of violence actually is forcing people into your version of reality. And part of that is measuring time. Like, not everybody runs by a 12-month calendar, and yet most people assume that the world should. And it's much the same if you are a people that had foreign invaders. So now the design question became, how do we perceive time then, if that's the case? If like, what if an hour for you is equivalent to other different time measurements for me? What if I follow the lunar calendar instead? And then the other thing with Dagger Isles, which I wasn't able to really articulate earlier, was it's an archipelago, not of nations, but of what we call mandalas. Now, a mandala is a geopolitical concept that's being tossed around in, especially in Southeast Asian studies. The idea that there is a center of nominal power, vaguely recognized by its surroundings, and they happen to govern one way or another over a whole bunch of settlements. So it's not quite a nation, but it's all. But you definitely shouldn't call it a tribe, and that's what's happening in Dagger Isles. You have a whole bunch of banyans. You write that down. You have a whole bunch of banyans, and each one of them is a settlement, and that is the man. That's the center of the mandala. So you're going to have about 5 of those moving around in this archipelago, and they all happen to have some cultural similarities, but each one of them is essentially its own nation, all on its own. And because you have that multiplicity, then you have multiple truths. What really happened? And because you have one story of sky parents, god beasts, they fought, the father died, the mother disappeared. Uh, but now you have 5 different people telling you that's not how it went.
Yeah.
I was there. My god beast ancestor was there. They were the weapon and the shield that the mother used against the father. And then you have another banyan that is like, no, no, Dad's not dead. He's gonna come back, right? And yet they'll all argue. But then if you told them, okay, so who's right? Each one of them's gonna go, we're all right. So you're like, what? And it's the same with time, right? So the emperor will tell you, I own this land. The Daggerites are gonna be like, ah, fuck him, that's fine.
Yeah.
Some of us say we let him say that because we get trade, right? Well, others will say, oh, we love him, and others will say, fuck that guy, right? So the timeline design was a part of that.
I mean, the whole fact that the entire calendar is based off of the beginning of the empire, right? Like the entire calendar is based off the empire, which is an arbitrary point in time. I mean, it is certainly a time when a big thing happened, but it is not all of the things.
And again, like this fits so well into the pseudo non-canon of what Core Blades already has, where it does have a history and it does have these facts about the world. Which in some cases are clearly not true. The map, for one thing, doesn't make a lot of sense at all. And so coming into this, when Pam had these ideas, it was really nice to see, like, it's going to fit perfectly at the table for people who are used to playing Blades and used to kind of bringing nuance and their own point of view to so-called facts of the setting. The Dagger Isles is going to be in that same spirit. It's all these wonderful details that you and your game group are going to be able to use and resist to that rigid canonization of everything, which is embodied in this idea of this sort of imperial papering over everything with this one true story. It's really cool.
Okay, so I think I'm getting some questions.
We've got We've got a couple questions. Sorry, I've been derelict in my duty. You were saying good things, so I was like, I'm not going to interrupt. But yeah.
Should I go ahead or?
Yeah. Oh, well, I was gonna ask the first one in there and let you answer it. How is the Sea's cultural influence and folklore around ghosts flavored or shifted by the concept of the ghost field?
Well, canonically, in the book, it says that the Dagger Isles has no lightning barriers. How we decided to answer that in design is that the flora that grows on the body of the Skyfather is bioluminescent because it eats ghost energy. So that's how we've changed it. Now, I hesitate to speak in generalized terms of Southeast Asia because my experience is only Filipino. But I can say that from what I've seen from the other designers who are working on settlements, one of them is taking the Indonesian idea of jasmines, because we have a saying here in many Southeast Asian countries that if you smell a jasmine flower, ghosts are nearby. So he's created this entire beautiful setting with a god beast who is basically a night queen, and their banyan literally shifts in and out of the ghost field because it follows the phases of the moon. And it smells like jasmine flowers all the time whenever they're close, because that is their job. They are the gateway. They're the in-between. For me, anyway, a lot of my design is informed again by the idea of if I was to pin it with aesthetics, you've got Spanish moss-covered concrete churches and all that. You have it's humid, hot, and you're in scratchy dresses made from local fabric, and you're trying to scramble over and worship at some god that probably doesn't even recognize you. So when it comes to now I have some better terms for it. When I was in my academic studies for literature, a lot of people talked about what is horror for Asians. So Asian, it's a big thing, right? And one of the things that was brought up for Southeast Asia in particular was we like to make the familiar defamiliar, because everything around us can be horrific. And we live with that reality. Nothing is clear cut. You can have somebody talking to you about hard scientific theory one day, and then later down the night, after a few drinks, they'll tell you, my dead grandfather came to me in a dream and he told me what to do. And it's both fact. The scientific theories about physics and gravity and the sun rising and setting are exactly the same as him having premonitions from his dead grandfather in his dreams. and that's our reality. Foreigners like to call it magic realism, which is also a term that even I think the Latin American authors who created it disavow, right? Because there's no magic to this reality. Our reality is magic. It is different. What is strange is also what's familiar to us. So that's how we consider what is horror. You take something intimate to you, something close, and you either zone it out a little bit to see how to make it weird and uncomfortable, or you really push the hilt of it and you see how that can fuck you up. That's horror for Southeast Asia. So does that answer the question? I don't know. I have a
Yeah.
hard time when people say cultural influence. I'm like, bleh, bleh. You know?
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I mean, a definition of horror that sounds horrific and you know, very. I mean, that's what feels, you know, that's horror to you, but like I'm getting chills as you're talking about this. So yes, I'm here for
Well, and I
it.
think based on what you said, one thing that struck me was that there is a kind of flip or turn from say Doskvol, where ghosts are a fact of life for everyone, but it is very much a thing that people want to keep out of their lives and separate from themselves as much as they can. Most people, and I'm seeing in this what you've said here and what in the Dagger Isles materials that it's much more integrated thing into
Yes.
your life. Yeah, that's
I'm,
cool. It's a nice shift from coming from the other.
I also can take
Setting.
very little credit for it on the team because I'm having two other people with me for the main setting content, and one of them has a lot of life experience when it comes to talking about religiosity, spirituality, folk beliefs in Southeast Asia in general, because he is a Southeast Asian studies major basically, and we wish to talk a lot about how the the multiple truths and the other side aren't really other sides, it is kin to you, and that there's also the very Filipino idea for me of how everything is from a god. Like my partner articulated it to me very well one time, how there are areas in the Philippines that still believe that the sea you swim in might be a god's pee or a god's tears, that the wind might be the brush of their hair on your face. Like that's how we imagine our world, and that's something that we hope to communicate with the Dagger Isles. That when you're here, everything is imbued with that kind of spirituality. There's no separation, and seeing a whole bunch of foreigners bumbling around trying to figure shit out is going to be very insulting to people like that. You know,
So
like,
speaking of a bunch of foreigners, I've got another question, which is much more on the practical side of things. I think I know where this question is going. If a duskballer scoundrel found a way out of the dusk, what might be the first thing they noticed as a difference upon trying to find work in a Dagger Isles crew?
you will be very confused because one banyan will look at you funny but welcome you. Another banyan might want to hang you. Another banyan will try to trade with you, and another banyan might want to sleep with you because you might have interesting genes to them. So the most confusing thing I think will be understanding or trying to wrap around your head that the Dagger Isles is again a collection of peoples rather than one person or one group of people. And of course, there might be the whole weirdness of like, where's the lighting barrier? Where is protection? There's no protection in this place. If you want protection, you're probably gonna have to find some spirit on the Dagger Isles that likes you, and it may or may not want to marry you. Because fun fact, that is a thing that used to happen, and I think still happens in some areas of the Philippines. How we negotiate with these otherworldly powers is we barter with them because you can never control them. It's not like those nice stories that people have of like killing gods and whatnot. You'd never kill gods here. You can't even touch their fingernail without dying. So the way to survive is to curry favor with them. And sometimes the favor that they will ask for is your hand in marriage. So it's not unheard of, let's say, for a spiritual leader to have a mortal spouse and also a spirit spouse. to kind of appease both sides of reality. So a bit of a taste of what it might be like. Also, if you manage to get to the Dagger Isles, you're damn lucky, I would think.
Yeah,
Because
that's a very hard trip.
it's a very hard thing to do. So
Nice. I've got a couple more questions if you're okay with me throwing more at you. Here's one that I could probably speak to. I can put my evil hat on. Will playtesting start for the Dagger Isles? And when can we sign up? Yeah, hold on. Let me pull out the schedule. As far as I know, the answer is we'll let you know when we're further down the line. This is earlier than we would normally be talking about something. We were excited about it and thought this would be a good platform. But usually we start talking when we're a little closer to having something.
I've also been getting a bunch of messages. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a Dagger Isles thing? So I've also been kind of going, that would be neat. Yeah. So yes, we've both been having that experience, and I think Sean has too. So we were like, you know what, let's talk about it early. But that does mean we can't give you those concrete, times for stuff. But yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah,
and there's quite a lot of work and refinement that I at least would like to get done. And my team is also working really hard on their stuff. So there's that. I wouldn't say that it's fully up in the air, but there's still a lot of mutable factors that need to be considered when it comes to playtesting, and or at least releasing it into the wild and seeing what y'all think. Right?
Yeah, but there will be all new playbooks. There will be all new crew playbooks as well. So you will, and the design goal is to create a mix and match ability. That if you want to bring a cutter from Duskvol, you can do that, and there won't just be like the cutter with the serial numbers filed off for placement when you're in the Dagger Isles. There'll be whole new playbooks there.
Yep. And vice versa for the people currently playing Daggerites in their Blades game at home. They'll be able to, if they want to, they can grab a Dagger Isles playbook and reflect that in the character they're playing elsewhere.
And I think honestly, that's one of the main things that might that will require a lot of development. Really, trying to figure out the cross compatibility, because it can't be, at least in my opinion, an effective supplement if people cannot take aspects of it and put it into a Blades game. So there will be hopefully well-written guides and sections about Doskvol and Daggerites. Now that we have this supplement, of course, all of it is 100% optional. Your canon is your canon, fiction first, etc., all those nice little things that people like to say on ttrpgs Twitter and Discord and whatnot, right? But at the end of the day, I want to communicate that this is my vision of the Dagger Isles. If it suits you, cool. If it doesn't suit you, go do your own damn thing. Freedom is freedom, right? Anarchy, whatever, right? But I just want to offer you an alternative vision of how things might go. That has been signed off by people who are as amazing as designers as I am. Like, I trust every single one of the folks that I brought on, and they have gone above and beyond when it comes to this. And every time they put out something new, I'm just like, holy fuck, right? Like my editing feedback has been, I'm so professional. My usual editing feedback is like, this is fucking amazing, right? Nothing else.
It really is.
It's so good. I've been blown away by everything. We got very lucky. It's gone that way. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I think we've touched on this a little bit. So I don't know that we need to dive into it hugely, but this is a different take on ghosts. Blades has the concept of spirit body dualism. Does this extended material bring up alternative frameworks for ghosts and the idea of spirits? And I think I just want to premise that by saying, like, Blades posits that the Church of the Ecstasy of the Flesh and the imperial sort of imperial rule makes these hard lines, right? Like Blades propaganda draws these hard distinctions. you can already see in Duskfall like weird exceptions to the rule all the time. So I don't think that the game itself necessarily embodies a dualism as much as it embodies a people who say that there is one. Sorry, go on. I just had to give a caveat from it.
Yeah, especially since the very fact that the Dagger Isles supplement will tell you that gods can die and be reborn might be a little different, right? I am also seeing a question about filling details in about Leviathans. Canonically, in the Dagger Isles supplement, a Leviathan is a creature born from what you call a god beast. And these god beasts are the creatures that made the Dagger Isles. God beasts are everything. So a lie that the Imperium will tell you is that the Leviathan is merely a monster. What the Daggerites will tell you is that these are gods that have been driven insane by the Cataclysm. They have sentience, they have feelings, and they have emotions. So some Daggerites are capable of communicating with them. So that's part of the canon that we will be playing with when it comes to Leviathans. And also, Daggerites believe that they are born from these Leviathans, which are merely one form of these monsters. Each settlement on the Dagger Isles has a patron god beast who is a child of the original great apex predator god beasts that the Isles came from. So that's the thing.
Nice.
That's
and I think
badass.
It's super cool. Very cool. Yeah, I love the descriptions of the god beasts. They're just so cool. And I think you kind of, again, you're sort of keep saying one step ahead of these questions. But another one was, will the Dagger Isles fill in any details about the Leviathans? I think the answer is yes, but I don't know. No, if you want,
I think that's a strong
say
yes.
more.
Yeah. Oh, also, apologies if you see people moving around. That's my partner. We are at home, so
hello.
Welcome to HomeCon, right?
Yes.
So that's the thing.
How has the Sea's influence changed the crews in the faction game, if at all? What do you think? I think Duskfall is like very, very centered on the like you're a tiny crew and everybody's going to crap on you unless you like stick it to them. How do you feel that's changed, if at all, in your designs, in your thoughts of how the crew game will work?
Well, definitely each banyan is going to have their own set of factions, and some of the factions won't necessarily interact at all. So there's that on how it's going to change things. I think the main constraint that you'll have is that this island hates you. It literally hates you. So you can leave theoretically. If you're gonna come back in one piece, we don't know, right? So that might change things. And the other thing that might, I don't know whether it's really going to be a faction game yet. Mechanically, I haven't thought that far so far. But yeah, it's that's a bit up in the air for now when it comes to the faction game in itself. I think that you may have a choice personally between tensions that are inherent in your community or your tensions with imperial invaders. So that might be a new kind of problem that you won't necessarily see in Blades in the Dark. Because in Blades in the Dark, you pay to you're the small guy, and you pay to the not so small guy, and then when you finish off that not so small guy, there's a small guy, and then a kind of bigger guy, and then a big guy, right? That's kind of how it goes. Heist,
the tier system explained.
right? Basically, so.
The theory of guys.
But the Dagger Isles is different. Like, are you going to go try to find the secret? Do you believe that this god beast is real? Are you gonna go look for it, or do you just want to kick out these weird white people who are stomping up your area? Or are you actually part of a family that's mad at another family and you have a blood feud? So those are different things also that we're thinking of. And I guess it's also Sea influence. I remember mentioning it a few times on Twitter and also in conversations. With Filipinos especially, we may not always be cognizant about it, but we are never actually alone. We're a collectivist society of everyone knows everyone. Actions, consequences, effects all come back to you somehow because you knew somebody who knew somebody who knows somebody, right? That might influence things a little bit. And now you add the spiritual aspect of it, where that guy could literally come back from the fucking dead and haunt you, right? So
Yeah.
there's that.
When you were saying that just now, Pam, it made me think, like, I was thinking about entanglements and how, like, the first thing I thought of was like, oh, like in normal Blades, you get like, the blue coats come and hustle you, shake you down for some money, or
Mhm.
your rivals demand a tribute. And when you were saying that, I imagined like, yeah, that it's kind of like that, except it's like your uncle,
Yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
like it's this very
Uh-huh.
like connected thing that's happening, that's entangling your life. That's not just some
Yeah.
person, it's like this more relationship driven.
Actually, now that thank you for reminding me, one playbook reveal I can tell you about because Nichelle and I are really like into this playbook, and we got together as a group and really kit bashed it a bit. But it's called the Barong. So let me type that out, and it is built around the concept of vengeance that is intergenerational. So I took the Hound, which has that nice little XP trigger thing of like if you take revenge on somebody, gain XP. So I took that idea and I ran with it, and
Whole
I guess I
playbook.
made it whole playbook. I made it Filipino because I described this to a couple of people already. Busan ng lahi. This is the idea of the elimination of a bloodline. It is a sin that is so bad that was committed and that there is no full way of making reparations, that it is carried generation after generation after generation. And a barong from the Dagger Isles is somebody who seeks to embody that justice. You are literally Batman's worst nightmare, if I want to bring it down to American terms, right? And that deep thing, right? And you become that demon. You are that demon for an entire other generation of people because you are trying to do the impossible. You're trying to pay back and make reparations for something that cannot be undone. So I don't know how much more Southeast Asian Filipino you can get from there, because that's what happens with us. We also believe that anything that you do really will come back, and if it won't come back to you, it'll come back to your family. And this applies to both good and bad. Like I want to take a small moment to give concrete terms to this because another designer asked me to explain it once. The Back in the day, my father did a small favor for some small journalist because at the time my father was quite affluent and this guy was in deep trouble. So he didn't think anything of it. He was just okay, here you go, have some money, whatever, it's cool. And he never thought about this guy again. He forgot his name. But then when we came back here in 1995 and we ran into trouble because apparently we barked up the wrong tree of a big politician, because that's a thing that happens over here. That journalist came out of fucking nowhere. Somehow he got my father's details and he cleaned up the mess for my dad. And my dad didn't even remember him. He was like, I'm sorry, who are you? And the guy said, remember that person that you helped in so and so year and date? That was me. And those are how things move back. Another interesting story was how my parents' business came back into fruition. Because again, we were affluent, and then martial law happened, so we all fled. When we came back, we didn't have a lot. My father had a dream of real estate, but he had no capital. And an old friend of his approached him and said, "Here's a building for free, and I can build you two more buildings because back in the day, you trained me how to move through government offices." He was, and again, a small person that my father helped. Those things come back to you. It's I think the concept in Filipino, which some of the diaspora might recognize, utang ng loob, a debt of the soul. So, and this is all just coming from me, right? There are other designers on this project that will be bringing in other things too that are the minutiae that make up a a localized experience for some Southeast Asians. So,
You were talking
Yeah.
about the. No, sorry, go on, John.
Oh, I was just going to say that one beautiful thing while you were talking, I was thinking of, my own experiences and like, this is your, like, it's a cultural lens on these things that's going to give all this great material for people when they play. But at the same time, it's this universal, it's something we can all relate to, right? Is that kind of give and take and reciprocity in these things. It's not this otherizing of everything, and trying to make it exotic, or the typical kinds of stuff that the pitfalls of when people like me try to write material like this. So I had a nice moment listening to you just talk about that, of like feeling very familiar, and also like I was
It's different,
learning so
right?
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's okay, because the biggest lie that a lot of designers will tell you, I feel, is that you can make a universal gamified experience. There's no such fucking thing.
Yep.
I will read a D&D book very differently from my partner, who will read it very differently from the two of you, who will read it very differently from other people that you know, and that's a single book, right?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
There's no universal experience, and the more we understand that and try to put that in our design, the better. While of course answering better while of course answering equally important questions like, is this gonna make me money? Am I gonna be happy? Is this worth publishing? All the things like that, right? Because that's
Things
that's
like
how
that.
you make that's how you make it successful.
Yeah.
Taking your vision and finding enough commonality and enough interest to spread it to other people and make them ask questions and make them think, and hopefully inspire somebody to design as well. Because at least for me, even if you hated my design, if you hated my design enough to want to do it better with your own design, I've succeeded.
Same.
Right?
Yep.
That's great, because
Mhm.
if you hate me, that means you like somebody else, and that's cool. Because more work is great for everybody.
I mean, I
Yep.
think at that level, like that much hatred is sort of a kind of love and passion, right? Like if somebody's like, "I hate your stuff so much," you're like, "Wow, you're really passionate about that." Like you were talking about the communal nature of it, the consequences of your actions. But I could just as you were describing it, I could feel like also the consequences of inaction. Like I can just imagine
Yeah.
the scenario you were like, God damn it, my brother is gonna go start some shit, and if I stop him, he's gonna be mad at me, and if I don't
Uh-huh.
stop him, I'm gonna pay for it, and it's gonna
Yeah.
suck no matter what. Like it's just like I could just feel that like there's no way to win energy, And
Brandon said that on the panel earlier today, with Andrew and Ali about Blades. It was like he described the core philosophy. I'm paraphrasing. I forget exactly what he said, but it was like basically that, like, you're always in a state of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you never just get to stop and go, well, we don't really have anything to do right now, so you always have something.
There's another question. This is a more general one, but were there any aspects of development that were particularly challenging or more difficult than you expected?
I think for me, the taking what was an amalgamous, really shiny vision and stretching them out into process documents and guides and things that not just Pam understands, but that everybody understands is one big challenge, right?
Yeah.
I've never helmed a project of this size before, so this is my first major rodeo as a lead for a project that will actually be published. So I'm still in shock about that. Like, it's happening, right? Oh my god, I have to be professional. Oh shit, right? So that's the thing, right? On the design level, though, being able to make a product that I'm happy with, but that can also reach a wider audience outside of the centers that mean a lot to me is a big challenge. I am dealing with a canon of a very popular game. And as much as I know that John Harper likes what I'm doing, uh, the Blades in the Dark doesn't just belong to him and me anymore. It is a public document for consumption that people
Yeah.
can do what they like with, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the nature of art. Even if you're still alive as the artist, people will do what they will with your game,
Mhm.
and they are as important as you are as creators, right? So making something that uh, more that a lot of people can at least be satisfied with, while also staying true to myself, is important. because of course I want to make sure that let's say people from America who are white and have no connection to any of these cultural ideas will be able to play and not feel like imposters. But also I don't want to give any white person an excuse to turn this into a fantasy of colonial violence or of white saviorhood or anything. I don't want to give them those tools. So, and it's so easy to say that, don't give them those tools, but how do you not do that as a designer? It takes more than just one to tango when it comes to these things. And even though I am a sensitivity reader and a cultural consultant, I am just one girl, and I can be wrong and I can be fallible. So that is an aspect that is difficult for me to handle. I hope that when the final product is out, that I've done what I could and that it's decent, and that if there are pitfalls, they can at least be rectified and improved upon, and that others who are better than me can move on and do their own thing. So,
Yeah, and I think the first step towards success there was when you came back to us and said, like, look, this is not a one-person job. Like, this needs to be a team of people. You touched on this early in the
yeah.
panel, but I think that was really smart, and obviously it has paid huge dividends already. Like, everyone's doing amazing work and creatively. But to touch on what you just said, I think there's also a kind of like checking in with each other kind of thing. Like, we all
Yeah.
have these different perspectives, and it's keeping it from being this monolith. And there's always that, there's stuff that you miss. That's just the nature of creation. But I think it's on very good footing in terms of being careful about those things and being really cognizant of the pitfalls that are potentially could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. Speaking from the project manager and organizer of documents and contracts and things like that side of things, I have to say that for you mentioned it as one of your challenges to like prepare this content for other people, but folks, if you ever have an opportunity to work on a project that Pam leads, you should take it, because Pam's like intro document was
Oh my
so
God.
comprehensive. It was like, here's what we want, here's what we don't want, here's some examples, here's a format, here's a template, like here's all this other content, here's a timeline. Like, it was just so comprehensive.
I have never gotten a better like pitch and document, like project document ever in my life. It was like it was just incredible.
I am so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh my
but
God.
honestly, I do want to thank some people who have hired me before, because they were the ones who taught me how to do that. I have some training in it because teacher, you got to learn to organize, or like your students will walk all over you, so will the admin, right? So that's
Yeah,
how it
yeah,
goes. But I've had the pleasure of working under some fantastic people. Some projects I can talk about, others I can't. And their process documents made me rethink how to design. And I took a lot of those points of inspiration with how to make mine. So I'm really happy that that's translating well. And I hope that I'll continue to be able to do that. Because sometimes
Yeah.
I look at my own writing and I'm like, who is this girl that wrote this amazing thing? That can't be me. It's not me. Where is she? I need her for 3,000 words.
Yeah.
I got a deadline next
Please
week.
show up. Where
Please
did you
show
go?
up, please.
Yeah, I have that feeling all the time. Like writing an Agon Island, right, Sean?
Yeah, right. Sometimes it just
How did
just
we
comes
ever
to
do
you
this?
in an epiphany. My goodness. All right. Well, we are. It feels like we just started. It feels like we launched this minutes ago, but we are getting close to our end. We got about 5 minutes left. So, folks in chat, if you have any other questions, please feel free to let us know. But Pam, I have a question, because last night I was really hoping I was going to be able to attend the very first playtest.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I had in my calendar, I was like, this is going to be my distraction from Big Bad prep. And then I ended up doing a training instead. So I want to know how the very first playtest went. Like, what came of it?
Oh, it was great because again we kit bashed Barong, that one playbook, and people had so many ideas on how to expand it, what to improve upon, and again that weird tension of like it's blades, but it's your blades. But since it's your blades, how are you going to make sure that it's still blades and it still works canonically and systematically, right? Because the baron was based loosely off the hound, and one of the feedback that we came up with was what you call it, can't we give it a melee option? And the mechanical problem was that probably not, because we have a melee, but then we also have that whole moment of, but also why not, right? So questions, little questions like that, little concerns and tensions came out, but we're really excited to do more because we want to make sure that one of the Shell's playbooks that she's not too certain about will really get put through the works of playtesting. So it went really good. I will endeavor to do more things, but honestly, for those of you who are wondering, I only built the playbook concept. It is Nichelle who's really going out there and putting fantastic system things into it and special abilities. Like, I'm constantly in awe of how she's doing it, and she has told me a few times already that she's also bringing her own cultural influences into it. So now we have that slight twist of this isn't just Southeast Asia. Other voices are coming in as well and talking about what matters to them and trying to put it into mechanics. And that's always the fun, difficult part, right? Putting yourself into a game. So
Yeah.
That's great. I'm very excited to hear that. Sean always says it, and it's very true that like there's something magical about when you get the internal playtesting going. It's like this engine, you know, you might be feeling burnt out, you might be feeling uncertain. As soon as you start playing it, it's just like it comes to life again.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah.
You start really realizing like what you need, what you care about. You're like, oh, I didn't know it was going. Oh, all that stuff I wrote, I didn't care about. I didn't use any of that. This is the thing I needed, or this little piece. That's all we did. So let's build that out.
Yeah.
So John, I've got a question for you and I. I think this.
Oh yeah, I was actually hoping someone would ask this. Sorry, John. Go ahead. Ask.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I was reluctant to ask it, but it has been asked, so I will forward it. Is there a notion of building out more regional blade supplements like this, given how exciting and ingenious this is sounding?
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say that's a resounding yes. And is there a notion? Yes, there is a notion, and especially following like this was a very easy kind of win out of the gate because of, we already said that document from Pam was just so like it mind-blowing that we were like, well, we should definitely go down this road. This is a win. It's clearly a win. But even before that, we had talked about this idea that it would make a lot of sense for anyone but me to write the other parts of the world, for obvious reasons that we've talked about tonight. And finding other people, other voices to continue this process of bringing new perspectives, building out the Shattered Isles, and really kind of following, in some ways, this process will potentially create a template for us to do it again. And especially from like the very first thing you said, Pam, like that the idea that the empire is built on lies is like a really core thing that's always been in my head about the setting of Blades, and on all canons of any kind are always very unreliable for me in gaming. So I think we want to continue that process of, oh, what about this? What's Severos like? The Empire says it's like this, but clearly that's not true. So yeah, who knows when those things are going to happen? They're not on our schedule. We don't have it all. No one's on the docket to do it, but
that was the part I was trying to dodge because I'm like, we don't know any timeline.
But again, the question was, is there a notion? And I would say yes, there is a notion, and
there's a notion.
We are very excited to continue to bring just like unleash all these great creative talents into the setting of Blades in the Dark, and let them build awesome stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have just less than a minute or so before we got to wrap up. So really quickly, Pam and John, thank you both so much. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Velgus, for being our Twitch moderator. Where can folks find you on the internet and the things that you're working on? Pam?
Okay, so the Dovetailer on Twitter. So let me type that down, people. I'm very noisy. I'm also very angry. You'll also see a lot of my cat, and these days you will hear talk from two different things: Final Fantasy 14, the critically acclaimed MMORPG with free expansion and 60-day trial, or you'll hear about Genshin Impact and me going, "My husbands and waifus," right? But beyond that, yes, occasionally I will try to talk smart and deal with discourse, and I may talk about Dagger Isles, especially if. Since the cat's out of the bag, hey, I'm doing it cool. So I will try to give you guys updates. Just a fair caveat, I am for hire for a lot of other projects. This is just my one personal flagship that I'm super happy about. But I'm also somebody else's girl for a lot of other things. So you may hear a bit of talk about that too when it comes to other projects.
Nice.
Follow me on Twitter if you want to. My Patreon is currently suspended. I suspended it. Don't worry about it because I haven't been able to produce new things yet. So if you want to hire me, don't come and find me just yet.
All right, we've got to wrap up. John,
Okay.
where can folks find you on the internet?
John_Harper on Twitter. That's where I live. Come and chat me if you want.
All right, thank you all. It was so great seeing all of you.
Yeah, this
see
was
you in the
really
next
fun.
panel. Oh, and I almost forgot. Jump in the post-panel chat to keep talking more about this on Discord.